This is part 2 of my announcement to returning to training and coaching after 5 years. So if you made it this far, you must be a little bit interested in what I have to say about finding purpose and some personal examples that I had and some really good books that led me to this decision. So just a little bit of like framing. I was in a really exciting path. I enjoyed what I was doing very much. And there was a lot of opportunity, but I just had this gut feeling that it wasn't right, and that over time it just kind of built up to the point where I was really ready to make a decision. And that wasn't an easy decision for me, but I kind of pulled out my top 3 like bits of information that I would call road signs to this decision. So I'm going to go through those kind of in the order that I discovered them. I'll start first with, this is a really popular business book called Good to Great by Jim Collins. So I was introduced to this book on a management conference that I was a part of for SF Group, Gas, Better Bodies, and Destination. We had a consultant come in, and he was talking to our management team, and he recommended that we read this book. So this book is actually way more applicable in that setting because it's about taking a company from a good company to a great company. So obviously I learned a lot from this book in that way, but really what stuck with me was to apply some of the same principles but at a personal level. And the author Jim touches on that a little bit because he has his wife actually in the book quits her job to pursue, it was either marathon running or triathlon, because one of the first concepts in this book is to ask yourself or your management team in a business setting, it's not about what you can be good at, it's about what you can be the best in the world at. It's kind of a book about focusing on your strengths. So asking yourself, these things I can be good at, but this thing I can be the best in the world at, and if I focus my energy on that, it will take me the farthest. And often our strengths, we're good at stuff for a reason because we have either God-given or natural abilities to do that. So for me, that was one of the biggest concepts I took out of this book, was to ask myself, what can I be the best in the world at? And a lot of the stuff I was doing, the answer was definitely no. As when you're growing up as a kid, you want to be a football player, I did, or an astronaut or whatever. And you have to ask yourself, can I be the best in the world at that? So, my dream to be an NFL football player ended when I didn't grow over 5'7". At about the age, I think I stopped growing probably around age, 15 or so. Anyways, but that's just to say, you have to see what the cards are dealt, and then realize, when I have all of these tools available, what can I be the best in the world at? The next and super cool concept from this book that I think really applies both to organizations and to people is a concept that the author and his team call the hedgehog concept. Follow me on this one because it's really cool, though it sounds kind of sketchy when I get going. So the analogy is about a hedgehog and a fox. And I didn't know much about either animal, so this was a learning experience for me too. But undoubtedly, foxes are very smart, cunning creatures. They can make plans, they can make strategies, they can communicate with one another. Smart animals that can do a lot of cool stuff. Hedgehogs can't do a lot of cool stuff. They're pretty simple. But what he uses in this analogy is that I guess foxes either attack or eat hedgehogs. There's a saga going out in the woods that I didn't know about, but foxes and hedgehogs are doing battle out there. But when the fox is trying to get the hedgehog, the hedgehog always wins because it knows what the author says. It knows one really big thing. The fox knows a lot of things, but the hedgehog knows one really big thing, and that's how to defend himself. So the big analogy, all that, read the book, it could probably describe it better than I did, but the takeout is that it's better to be something that you're the best in the world at and simply do that, as opposed to spread yourself thin, have all these wild strategies and not be that good at any of them. That you're better off being a hedgehog at knowing what you're going to be the best in the world at and sticking to that, and that you're going to beat a lot of people that have a bunch of complicated stuff going on and can't get the same depth that you have on your one thing. So that was a really like beauty and simplicity kind of a take home. So that's my two main takeouts from this book. Highly recommended. Fast forward a couple months for me. I read every morning, at least for an hour or so. So I read a lot of books, and there was books in between this. But the next one that I wanted to bring up is called Let Your Life Speak by Parker J. Palmer. This is one of those books where it's like, I don't know how I found this book. I must have been deep in the internet to find this, because it came out in year 2000. And it's pretty popular. He's got quite a few books. I read a few of them. This was by far the best. I will warn you though, it's really deep. There was like a few times where I was reading this and I was like, what am I reading? Like, I need to go lift weights or like do something like, less touchy-feely. Like, this is pretty deep stuff. But you fight through it. It's not long. You can see the book. I think it's, less than 200 pages, 120 pages. So it's small, but I read it in chunks, and I read it a couple times because it was so potent, and it really helped me. I did some journaling while I was reading it, but really, really good. A couple things that I wanted to share here was kind of the basics about the book. It's about finding your true self, which he's a Quaker, which is, at first I was thinking Amish, but it's different. They're more like pacifists, the Quakers are. So Parker's a pacifist Quaker. But anyways, they have this term called true self, which is called different things in different kind of religions or belief systems. But the whole thing is about listening to yourself versus forcing yourself to do stuff. So like we, especially driven people, really fall into this, is that you want something so bad, like no matter how you determined that, that you'll force yourself to go against your own grain for long periods of time, potentially even a lifetime. And that if you never stop and listen to what you kind of were meant to do or what your strengths were built to do, you could spend a lifetime, aiming in the wrong direction. He respectfully disagrees with, something that I've always kind of held close to my heart, and that is you can do whatever you put your mind to. And he says, you can't. And that's okay. So at first when I read that, I was like, oh, that's bullshit. I mean, I believed that my whole life. Like, if I outwork people, then I can do whatever I want. And I do believe that to a degree, but he successfully challenges that and says that, you can't. You have a certain amount of gifts. You were put here for a reason. And if you let's take my football player example as an example. If I was dead set on being an NFL football player, and maybe I would have made it to some degree to the NFL, but probably not to the level of success I would have wanted. But, had I, just continued to follow that road despite the world telling me no, I probably would have been undersized. I would have not gone to the best school, because I was pursuing football over something else. I could have spent years, doing stuff that wasn't building towards my kind of true purpose. So that his whole purpose is that, or one of his big messages, that's okay when the world closes doors on you, because at least that eliminates some of the paths that you shouldn't be going on. So listen to yourself, listen to your strengths, much like Good to Great. Focus what you can be the best in the world at, and go all in on that. So that a great book about purpose, really quick and short read. I would suggest it. All right, lastly, so this is actually a series of books. This is a series called 2 Minutes in the Bible. This particular one is a 90-day devotional for men, author Boyd Bailey. This, I think, is my third or fourth in this series. So that's been my morning routine for quite some time now. I actually start with the devotional. It takes like 15 minutes for me to kind of read the passage, look up the verses, and take a few notes for myself, and then I'll read something, usually nonfiction. But anyways, so I recommend these 2 Minutes in the Bible books for those of you that are interested in that. Again, I'm not like a big preachy guy. I'm more of a Christian by example than by preaching. But anyways, how it kind of fits into this scenario was I was pretty stressed out over my decision to return to training and coaching. I really wanted to. but there was a lot of logical reasons in my mind why I shouldn't make that leap. There was, I had put a lot of time into the projects I was working on. There was, a lot of people that depended on what I was working on, or I was, heavily involved in some relationships. A lot of like logical reasons, but still like every part of me wanted to make the move. And so I was, stressing over it, as most people do. And I actually hadn't picked this book up in probably 3 months. I was, doing other stuff in my morning routine, and I'd taken a break from it. But no kidding, like right when I was having all those thoughts of like, just trust your gut, you can't outthink this. I opened this book up, and one of the passage of that day, one of the recommended verses was Proverbs 3:5, that says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding." Man, and it hit me in the face. It was like, you don't try to figure this out. Like, you can just have faith that it's going to work out. And again, like, I don't want to necessarily marry this to a Christian speech, because that can be, whether you believe in the world or different religions, there can be a number of things. I think a lot of the messages are the same, but regardless, it's like, trust your heart, follow your heart, trust your gut. Intuition and your spirit has a funny way of being right all the time. I mean, don't ignore it. Like, you have to learn to listen to yourself. So that for me was it. It was like, I just need to, for me, I wanted to focus on my faith and just say, like, look, you know what? I was put here for a reason. I don't know what that is. I'm not smarter than the being that put me here. So I'm going to follow my heart. I'm not going to lean on my own understanding of this situation. And I'm going to do I'm going to follow what I think I can be one of the best in the world at. I'm going to keep it simple, and I'm going to pursue follow my purpose. That's basically the path I kind of went through with these 3 books and, some other accessory stuff. So anyways, a lot about me, but I didn't share it because, I necessarily feel like I need to unveil everything I think about in the morning time, but more so as an example, if any of you guys are in situations that are similar to that, or wanted some material that helps you find your purpose, pursue your passion. That's something I'm big on. I think money will take care of itself if you're doing what you love. So that's a path I followed, and invite you to follow it too. And I'm happy to recommend any other things, or if you want to comment in any of these, whether this is on Facebook or YouTube, comment. Be happy to reply and point you in any direction. I'm not an expert, but I have my own experience bank to draw on. So anyways, thank you guys for listening, and looking forward to being back in the world of training and coaching.